In the gilded world of royalty, where every gesture is scrutinized and every word carries the weight of history, two women stand at opposite ends of a narrative that has captivated the globe. One, Catherine, Princess of Wales, embodies a quiet strength, a grace that seems effortless yet profound. The other, Meghan Markle, Duchess of Sussex, is a woman whose ambition burns bright, her every move a calculated step toward a spotlight she craves but cannot fully grasp. Their paths, once intertwined through marriage and monarchy, have diverged into a saga of rivalry, jealousy, and a relentless quest for relevance. This is not just a story of personal animosity, it's a chronicle of how one woman's insecurity has reshaped her legacy, leaving a trail of broken bonds and whispered betrayals. At its core is a truth as old as time. Envy, unchecked, becomes a poison that taints everything it touches. Meghan's journey from actress to royal to self-styled global icon has been marked by a pattern of behavior that predates her royal title, a pattern that reveals a woman desperate to rewrite her story, but unable to escape the shadows of her own making. Long before Meghan Markle became a household name, she was a girl with big dreams in a world that didn't always bend to her will. A resurfaced story from her childhood paints a vivid picture. A teenage Meghan, furious over a choice between a school play and a summer camp, erupting in a screaming match with her father, Thomas. When she didn't get her way, she didn't just sulk, she banned her father from working on the school production and moved out to live with her mother. It wasn't just a tantrum, it was a glimpse into a personality that couldn't tolerate sharing the stage. This wasn't an isolated incident. Friends and classmates from her early years recall a young woman who thrived on attention but bristled when it was directed elsewhere. She was charming when the spotlight was hers, but when it shifted, her warmth could turn to ice. These stories, buried in the archives of her pre-fame life, suggest a trait that would follow her into adulthood, an inability to cede control, a need to be the center of every narrative. Fast forward to 2018, when Meghan entered the royal family as Prince Harry's bride. The world saw a fairy tale, modern, biracial American actress joining the ancient institution of the British monarchy. But behind the scenes, the cracks were already forming. Meghan, who had spent years crafting her image as an actress and philanthropist, expected to step into a starring role. Instead, she found herself in the shadow of Catherine, whose understated elegance and unwavering commitment to duty had already won the public's heart. Catherine, Princess of Wales, is the antithesis of Meghan's calculated charisma. Her grace is not a performance but a lived reality, evident in moments both grand and small. At Wimbledon in 2024, when a young tennis player broke down in tears, Catherine's response was instinctive. A gentle hand on the arm, a quiet word of comfort, no cameras needed. It was a moment that resonated globally, not because it was staged, but because it was genuine. Catherine doesn't demand attention. It follows her naturally, a byproduct of her authenticity. Meghan, by contrast, has always been a performer. Her career on Suits was built on delivering lines with precision, and her transition to royal life was no different. Every public appearance was meticulously planned, outfits chosen for maximum impact, gestures calculated to convey relatability. But where Catherine's actions felt organic, Meghan's often felt like a production. Her warmth, her smiles, her tears, they were convincing, but only to those who didn't look too closely. The contrast was stark at public events. Catherine, often accompanied by her children, radiated a warmth that needed no script. Meghan, meanwhile, seemed to struggle with the supporting role she'd been cast in. She was sixth in line to the throne, a fact that rankled her ambition. According to palace insiders, Meghan believed her marriage to Harry would elevate her to a leading lady, a modern queen who could redefine the monarchy. Instead, she found herself overshadowed by a woman whose quiet power she could neither emulate nor eclipse. The tension between Meghan and Catherine came to a head during a 2019 flight to South Africa, a moment that would become infamous in royal circles. The flight, carrying Harry, Meghan, and their infant son Archie, was meant to be a routine diplomatic trip, but for the flight attendants, it was anything but. According to a senior British Airways crew member, Meghan's behavior toward Archie was chillingly detached. She didn't touch him, didn't comfort him when he cried, and left his care entirely to nannies and staff. It wasn't the exhaustion of a new mother. It was a coldness that left the crew stunned. More troubling was Meghan's demeanor toward the staff. When Harry was present, she was charming, her voice warm, and her manners impeccable. But the moment he left the cabin, her attitude shifted. She became curt, dismissive, treating the crew as if they were beneath her notice. One attendant described it as a Jekyll and Hyde transformation, a performance so calculated it felt rehearsed. These observations, shared in hushed tones among the crew, painted a picture of a woman who tailored her behavior to her audience, a woman who knew the power of perception and wielded it like a weapon. The South Africa flight wasn't an anomaly. It was a continuation of a pattern that stretched back to Meghan's pre-royal days. Airline crews from her time on Suits recalled a passenger who demanded special treatment upgrades without payment, exemptions from rules, and a general air of entitlement. Hotel staff told similar stories. Meghan was polite when it served her, but her warmth vanished when the spotlight dimmed. These accounts, collected by journalists like Dan Wooten, suggested that Meghan's behavior wasn't a product of royal pressure but a reflection of her core character. This pattern of control extended to her family. Thomas Markle, once a doting father, was cut off from his daughter's life, learning of her pregnancy and Archie's birth through the media. The estrangement wasn't just personal, it was strategic, a way to distance herself from a past that didn't fit her new narrative. Samantha Markle, her half-sister, was more vocal, accusing Meghan of manipulating her image to erase any trace of her roots. She pointed to a specific detail. 9 months before Archie's birth, Meghan had collected her frozen eggs, a fact that raised questions about the timeline of her pregnancy. The questions about Meghan's pregnancies intensified when Lady Colin Campbell, a royal insider with a reputation for uncovering uncomfortable truths, obtained Archie's birth certificate. The document initially listed Meghan's full name, Rachel Meghan Markle, as the mother, but an amendment, requested by Harry, removed her name entirely, replacing it with Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. The palace dismissed it as a clerical error, but Lady Campbell argued that such changes were rare and typically made only to correct falsehoods. The implication was clear. Something about the original document didn't add up. This wasn't just a bureaucratic quirk, it was a potential scandal. If Meghan had used a surrogate, as some speculated, but failed to disclose it, the implications for Archie's place in the line of succession could be profound. The royal family's silence on the matter was deafening, neither confirming nor denying the rumors. It was a strategic choice, one that allowed speculation to flourish while protecting the institution from a crisis. As the rumors grew, Meghan's PR team worked tirelessly to reshape the narrative. A viral story emerged about an American Airlines flight attendant who claimed Meghan left a handwritten thank you note describing her as a gracious passenger. The story was heartwarming, but it raised red flags. Airline staff are bound by strict confidentiality policies, and the speed with which this anecdote reached the press suggested it was planted. Insiders called it a desperate attempt to counter the growing number of negative accounts from staff who'd witnessed Meghan's less flattering side. Meanwhile, Meghan's public appearances became even more controlled. Photos of Archie and Lilibet were released sparingly, each one a masterpiece of lighting and composition. There were no candid moments, no unpolished snapshots, just carefully curated images that felt more like marketing campaigns than family memories. The children, it seemed, were props in a larger production, their appearances timed to maximize impact. At the heart of this saga is the rift between Harry and his brother, Prince William. Once inseparable, the brothers are now estranged, their relationship fractured by a series of betrayals. William, according to close friends, harbors a deep anger toward Harry, a sentiment that goes beyond sibling rivalry. It's rooted in the public attacks on Catherine, the vague accusations of racism in the royal family, and the constant leaks that seem to follow Harry and Meghan's every move. The Dutch edition of Omid Scobie's book, Endgame, was a turning point. It named King Charles and Catherine as the royal racists who had allegedly questioned Archie's skin tone. Though Harry and Meghan distanced themselves from the claim, the damage was done. For William, it was a betrayal that cut deep, a public airing of private grievances that tarnished his wife's reputation. The fact that the leak came from someone close to the Sussexes only deepened his distrust. William's stance is clear. There is no path back for Harry and Meghan. Every attempt at reconciliation, from Harry's visits to his ailing father to rumored secret summits, is met with skepticism. William sees them for what they are, not gestures of goodwill but opportunities for content. Every conversation, every moment shared, becomes fodder for interviews, documentaries, or carefully timed leaks. For William, protecting the monarchy and Catherine means keeping Harry at arm's length. In Montecito, Meghan and Harry have built a new life, but it's a far cry from the royal dream they once envisioned. Their ventures podcasts, Netflix deals, a lifestyle brand called American Riviera Orchardare struggling to gain traction. Meghan's products, adorned with royal-inspired crests and fonts, are an attempt to cling to the monarchy she left behind. But without a visible connection to the royal family, the brand feels hollow, a pale imitation of the prestige she once had. Hollywood, too, has been less welcoming than Meghan hoped. Once championed by power players like Oprah Winfrey and Gayle King, she now finds herself on the outside looking in. Oprah, once a vocal supporter, has been spotted vacationing with other influencers, a subtle but telling shift. The A-list circles Meghan aspired to join are wary, sensing the transactional nature of her relationships. Every interaction feels like a potential anecdote for a podcast or a chapter in a tell-all book, and in Hollywood, trust is currency. Harry, meanwhile, seems adrift. His public appearances are marked by a quiet discomfort, a man caught between his wife's ambition and his own fading relevance. His comments about his father's health delivered in a Good Morning America interview were jarring, lacking the emotional depth one would expect from a son. They felt scripted, another moment turned into content. Without the royal feud to fuel their narrative, Harry and Meghan are left with little to say, their story reduced to a cycle of grievances and rebrands. Meghan's jealousy of Catherine is not just a personal failing. It's a driving force that has shaped her choices. She saw in Catherine what she could never be, a woman who commands respect without demanding it, whose presence is felt without being forced. Every time Catherine steps into the spotlight at Wimbledon, at a charity event, with her children by her side, Meghan responds with a countermove. A leaked story, a new product launch, a carefully timed interview each is a bid to pull focus, to remind the world that she's still here. But the world is moving on. Catherine and William are focused on their duties, their children, and the future of the monarchy. King Charles, battling illness and the weight of his role, may still hope for reconciliation, but his time is limited. When William ascends the throne, the door to Harry and Meghan will close for good. He will be a king who prioritizes stability over sentiment, and for him, the Sussexes represent chaos. Meghan's story is a cautionary tale about the dangers of envy and the limits of ambition. She wanted to be the star of the royal fairy tale, but she misread the script. Catherine was always the leading lady, not because of her title, but because of her character. Meghan's attempts to rewrite the narrative through media leaks, curated images, and a relentless PR campaign have only widened the gap between her and the legacy she craves. In Montecito, the Sussexes are surrounded by the trappings of success mansions, deals, a carefully crafted brand. But the silence is deafening. The Hollywood elite have pulled back, the royal family has moved on, and the public is growing weary of their story. Meghan's empire, built on the promise of empowerment and elegance, is crumbling under the weight of its own contradictions. You can't claim victimhood while selling royal-inspired luxury goods. You can't demand privacy while turning every moment into a headline. Harry, once the charming prince, is now a shadow of himself, a man caught in a narrative he can't control. His attempts at peace visits to his father, public pleas for understanding, are undermined by the leaks and stunts that follow. Whether he's unaware of Meghan's machinations or complicit in them, the result is the same: a fractured family, a fading legacy, and a couple staring down a future they never anticipated. As the sun sets on Montecito, Meghan and Harry are left with a choice: to continue chasing a spotlight that grows dimmer by the day, or to find a new path, one that doesn't rely on the monarchy they left behind. But for Meghan, letting go of the royal dream means letting go of the identity she's built. And that, more than anything, is what drives her. The envy, the ambition, the need to be seen. It's a fire that burns bright but leaves only ashes. Across the Atlantic, Catherine continues her work, her grace a beacon in a world of chaos. She doesn't need to rewrite her story because she lives it every day. For Meghan, that truth is the hardest to bear. The royal fairy tale is over, the Hollywood dream has faded, and what remains is a woman whose greatest battle is with the mirror of her own making.